Today, the South Pacific island of Tahiti is a botanic paradise. But in the not-too-distant past, much of the colorful flora visitors see today was almost completely absent from the landscape. While Tahiti's volcanic soil is rich in nutrients, the island's extreme isolation caused a low diversity of plant life, especially of the flowering variety. Although early Polynesians brought some flowers from other areas, like this hibiscus ate, many more were introduced by foreign visitors in the 19th and 20th centuries. Dr. Harrison Smith, an American teacher and naturalist who made Tahiti his permanent home in 1919, is the one person most credited with changing the island's landscape by bringing its floral potential to brilliant, colorful life. Smith's seaside botanical gardens are treasured not only for their beauty, but also for their contribution to Tahitian agriculture and history.
I think the Harrison Smith garden is so unique because of Harrison Smith, because there was no need for it. But we did not need a garden. There were no visitors, really. There was maybe 1 or 10 visitors per year, you know. But he made it unique. It's the purpose of making this reserve, of saying, well, I must try to do something for this country. And I will bring in plants that will be useful to them.
Smith first visited Tahiti in 1907, when this land was a coconut plantation. After he purchased the property, which borders a serene lagoon in Papiari, he began creating a garden of remarkably diverse tropical species. Smith introduced 215 new plants to the island of Tahiti. Some of these species were grown from seeds, while others arrived as thriving plants, and Smith shared them all freely with the local population. Many of the ornamental shrubs and flowers Smith imported and featured in his gardens can now be found all over Tahiti, like this golden trumpet, which is native to Brazil.
After the influence of Harrison Smith on Tahiti, Tahiti has become much more colorful than it before was always very lush and green, but there was no color in nature. There were very few flowers.
Perhaps the most spectacular feature of this garden is its remarkable array of trees. This romantic coconut grove is all that remains of the original plantation. When Smith acquired this land, the economic importance of plantations had diminished, but he kept this area just as it had been.
He was always called the father of the trees, which he is still today, because he introduced so many plants with no commercial purpose in mind, because he gave them away if people liked them and if they took care of them. If they didn't take care of them, no, didn't do it.
Smith introduced more than 120 other species of palms to the island, including exotic specimens like these nipa palms. Nipas are palms native to Southeast Asia that now grow here thanks to Harrison Smith's efforts. He also imported and cultivated trees like the breadfruit tree, an evergreen native to Malaysia that features large, round, edible fruit. Another import is this striking Indian banyan tree, which covers an entire acre. The banyan's spaghetti-like aerial roots descend from the branches to form new trunks. Smith's botanical gardens preserve and cultivate indigenous plants as well, like these stately native chestnut trees. The gardens also feature a collection of teak and mahogany trees. Their wood is selectively harvested and used in Tahitian furniture and handicrafts. Harrison Smith's legacy can be found throughout these beautiful gardens, as well as the entire island of Tahiti. When we return to World Garden Tour, we'll travel to Barcelona, Spain, and visit a garden that blends an unusual artistic vision with natural beauty.
It's a whole block of shows that help.
The garden tour now travels to Barcelona, Spain, a city that bears the strong artistic imprint of one of its most famous residents, noted Art Nouveau architect Antoni Gaudí. Gaudí designed numerous buildings throughout the city, and one of his most well-known undertakings was the Parc Güell, which was created at the turn of the 20th century. Originally planned as a housing development, the Parc Güell is built into a rugged hillside landscape of steep slopes and winding cliffs.
The park is very much connected with the city of Barcelona. It lies between the city and what we call the Bald Mountain.
Few people understood Gaudí's vision, and in 1914, the housing development failed, leaving only a small number of structures and access roads completed. Although Barcelona lost a potentially fascinating suburb, it gained a dramatic garden like no other in the world when the Parc Güell became a public garden in 1922.
The Parc Güell failed at the time for many reasons. The result is we have a magnificent public park today, which was designed with great respect for nature and where art objects were incorporated into the design of the gardens in exquisite taste. The reason is it was created by Antonio Gaudí, a man of great culture and imagination who gave it a magical lyrical quality.
Lodges with curved ceramic roofs guard the gateway to the Parc Güell. A mosaic tiled fountain in the shape of a dragon stands on the wide steps that lead up to a plaza at the park's entrance. This enormous structure, which Gaudí called his Greek theater, was to be used as a weekly market hall in the Spanish village tradition. It was completed in 1906. It's a large open space with a roof that's supported by 86 stylized Doric columns. Whimsical mosaic sun emblems are embedded in the roof. The columns of the market support a rooftop park that offers a spectacular view of Barcelona's skyline. A serpentine bench winds around the entire circumference of the expansive roof's edge. This bench illustrates one of Gaudí's favorite design techniques, called trencadís. It is completely covered with broken ceramic tiles that have been positioned and embedded in mortar. The back of the market is built into a cliff. Large stone columns complement its vertical form, and bright bougainvillea grows abundantly here. This woody vine is most commonly seen in shades of pink and fuchsia, but the Parc Güell also features a brilliant orange. The flower of the bougainvillea is very small. The brightly colored petal-like bracts that grow at the tips of the branches are what most people believe to be the flowers of the bougainvillea. But those are actually colorful leaves. A marching line of stone columns leads the way to the top of the mountain, and some of these columns serve as giant planters. Here, large blue agave grows well and echoes the shape of the stone Gaudí used in constructing the pillars. Other columns are built into the cliffs and lead to natural grottos and caves. The steepest portions of the path are made into steps, and the columns give way to a stone wall that is topped with a brick chevron-patterned railing. Along the winding path, natural Mediterranean vegetation abounds. Thickets of orange trees cluster in sheltered areas. Sky blue morning glories climb amid succulent plants. Red roses thrive in the bright sunshine, and rich red geraniums seem to spill out of the rock itself.
We want our parks to be a symbol of our identity, and at the same time, we want to cultivate many types of green vegetation from all over the world. We also want our trees and plants to be the most appropriate vegetation possible for the spaces and parks where they will be utilized. We want people to recognize that there are special green plants that are typical of our Mediterranean climate here in Barcelona.
Although cacti originated in the Americas, the Mediterranean climate is ideal for growing these spiny succulents. When in bloom, they can be surprisingly colorful and produce edible fruit. Some cacti even have edible petals.
There are 5 places in the world that have similar climates to our lovely Mediterranean one. This gives us an opportunity to bring plants from these other parts of the world, and we know they will flourish here.
With its unusual combination of natural landscaping and fantastic architectural design, Barcelona's Park Güell is a fascinating marriage of form and function. Coming up on World Garden Tour, we'll tour a variety of landscapes from around the world, all inside the amazing conservatory at the New York Botanical Garden.
Sunday morning.
World Garden Tour now travels to the New York Botanical Garden, which is home to one of the world's most diverse collections of plants and trees. Situated on 250 acres in the Bronx, it has 27 dramatic outdoor gardens, as well as the nation's largest conservatory, built in 1902. This Crystal Palace showcases hundreds of exotic plants and flowers.
This is the Enid A. Hope Conservatory. It is about an acre under glass, composed of 11 houses, made up of 7 galleries.
Each of the conservatory's 7 galleries replicates a different climatic region and botanical habitat. The tour begins with a recreation of a South American environment.
When you enter the conservatory, you enter at the Palm Gallery. The Palm Gallery houses the largest collection of New World palms under glass. And we did this because many of our scientists work in the New World, in the Amazon. As you leave the Palm Gallery, you enter the lowland rainforest. This is a New World lowland rainforest, and the plants here are plants that are native from Central America to South America.
In an actual lowland rainforest, trees can tower 200 feet in the air. But since it would be difficult to grow trees of that stature indoors, the conservatory's designers have recreated a massive limb that appears to have fallen from one of those rainforest giants. Bromeliads and orchids are just a few of the exotic flowering plants called epiphytes that typically grow in the treetops. But thanks to the ingenuity of this exhibit, visitors have the rare opportunity of seeing this beauty that's usually hidden high above in the forest canopy.
As you leave the lowland rainforest, you enter the Vine and Aquatic Gallery, and here you're back in New York again. And there are benches in here that you can sit and contemplate all that you've learned in the lowland.
The water is peppered with stands of papyrus, and native to coastal areas, there are a number of mangrove trees with their distinctive stilt-like roots. Just beyond the Vine and Aquatic Gallery, the Upland Rainforest House showcases plants that are found in the mountainous regions of South American countries like Ecuador and Colombia.
The temperature in the lowland is normally from 65 nights to about 90 days, but in the upland it never gets higher than 65 in the daytime and normally much cooler at night. The plants here differ a little bit because everything is shorter, more stunted, and the epiphytes that we saw in the lowland actually grow around you in the upland because the trees never get that tall.
Leaving the upland rainforest for much warmer and arid conditions, visitors move into the conservatory's desert galleries. The American Desert Gallery features plants that are native to Arizona and Texas, including many endangered cacti. A slow-growing saguaro stands in this corner of the gallery. Saguaros typically grow just a few inches per year. This one is nearly 8 feet tall and is estimated to be more than 50 years old. Another rare cactus is the golden barrel, which is native to Mexico. This ball-like plant absorbs water and stores it inside its hollow body for nourishment. After visitors wind their way through the desert gallery, they arrive in the hanging house, a greenhouse devoted to hanging plants.
Many of the plants here are actually ferns. Ferns were the plants that were around during the dinosaur period. Also here, there are flowering plants like begonias, and begonias make very good house plants. If you look around, you probably will see some of them that you could use in your house.
Once visitors have completed the tour of the conservatory, they head out to its courtyard, where pools of water teem with colorful lilies and other aquatic plants.
In our interior courtyard, we have two large pools. One is a hardy pool and one is a tropical pool. The hardy pool has plants that come back every year. They're plants like water lilies, nymphaeas, and Nelumbos, the water lotus, which has very pretty exotic type blooms. The tropical pool has similar plants, except that they're not hardy.
The tropical pool includes cypress and different grasses, varieties that have to be replanted every year, but their beauty makes all the work worthwhile. The New York Botanical Gardens Crystalline Conservatory offers an educational world of wonders. But there's even more garden glory found beyond this glass house and its courtyard. Coming up, we'll stroll through the Botanical Gardens' picturesque perennial garden and learn how its designer has very carefully used color as her primary design tool, when World Garden Tour continues. World Garden Tour's exploration of the New York Botanical Garden now continues with the outdoor perennial garden. Its use of vivid colors provides both a beautiful destination for visitors and a useful lesson for the at-home gardener. The garden was not always as thriving as it is today. 20 years ago, it had fallen in disrepair due to citywide financial cutbacks. The New York Botanical Garden called on the help and expertise of landscape designer Lyndon Miller, who had recently completed a similar project for the restoration of Central Park's Conservatory Garden.
After I did the Conservatory Garden and it was up and running, the New York Botanical Garden, to my great surprise and joy, asked me to come and do the same thing up there in their perennial garden. Perennials, I feel, should be used with shrubs. The company background, the form and the structure of wonderful ornamental shrubs, and then you add to that mix bulbs and annuals.
In the first section of the garden Miller redesigned, she decided to use flowering perennials with cool blue-toned colors, like these balloon flowers, pink daisies, and fuchsia asters. Incorporating various shades of green foliage helps make those colors stand out.
I'm most interested in foliage and form, so the foliage and the form of the shrubs and perennials is very carefully thought out.
Miller also employed foliage with dark red leaves to complement the greens. When she replanted the other half of the perennial garden, Miller used a different color palette.
When I was started on the other side of the main path in 1989, we did the same kinds of shrubs, oak-leaved hydrangeas, berberis, dark red berberis, Prunus cisterna, things like that. But this time the flower colors were bright. So I call one the cool room and one the hot room, and the hot colors are bright yellows, bright orange, bright red, red with no blue in it.
Some of Miller's design ideas were drawn from her work with world-renowned gardener Penelope Hobhouse, who designed the adjacent herb garden.
Right next door to the perennial garden is the herb garden. But before Penny Hobhouse and I started collaborating, you couldn't get from the perennial garden to the herb garden. You had to walk all the way around the outside. So when they invited Penny to do the herb garden, she and I got the idea we'd break through so that you could walk from one to the other.
When Miller and Hobhouse created the walkway that would connect the two separate gardens, they incorporated specific plants into their design to provide a natural feeling of transition. For example, this catmint, with its delicate periwinkle blooms, serves as a colorful bridge between the perennial and herb gardens. Many gardeners choose color simply based on personal preference, but color can provide much more than aesthetic pleasure. It serves as a tool to help guide the eye around the garden And as we have seen, color also helps serve as a visual bridge between areas of the garden that showcase dramatic themes. From New York's colorful and educational botanical gardens to the Art Nouveau splendor of Barcelona's Parc Güell, to remarkably diverse tropical gardens in Tahiti. We thank you for traveling with us and hope you'll join us again next time for another World Garden Tour.